James Carter grew up in a quiet coastal town where the sea always whispered stories of adventure. He often stood on the cliffs, staring out at the horizon, dreaming of a life that was larger than the simple routines of his hometown. The Marine Corps was his escape, a chance to fight for something greater, to find a purpose beyond the tides. The meeting. It was on his first leave after boot camp that James met Emma. She was working behind the counter at a coffee shop nestled in the town square. Her laugh was soft and genuine, and her hazel eyes seemed to carry the warmth of 1,000 sunsets. James didn't believe in love at first sight, but when Emma handed him his coffee, her fingers brushing his, he felt something he couldn't explain. "Marine, huh?" she asked, glancing at his buzz cut and his posture that screamed military. "Yeah," he said, suddenly self-conscious. She smiled. "My brother's Navy. I've got a soft spot for people in uniform." That was all the encouragement James needed. Over the next week, he visited the coffee shop every day, sometimes twice. They'd talk about everything, her dreams of opening her own bakery, his aspirations in the Corps, and their shared love of the ocean. By the time his leave was over, James knew he was falling for her. "Promise me you'll write," Emma said at the train station, her voice trembling. "I promise," James replied, holding her gaze. The distance. Deployment was brutal. James was stationed in Afghanistan, where the scorching heat and the constant threat of danger weighed heavily on him. But every time he opened a letter from Emma, it was as if the world brightened for a moment. Her letters were full of life and love. She told him about the bakery she was planning, about her days walking by the ocean, and about how much she missed him. James would sit under the stars, reading her words over and over, imagining her voice, her laugh, her smile. One letter stood out. "James, sometimes I close my eyes and pretend you're here with me. I imagine us sitting by the water, talking about nothing and everything. It hurts that you're so far away, but I'm proud of you. You're my hero. Stay safe, my Marine. Come back to me." It became James's mantra. Come back to her. The proposal. After 8 long months, James returned home. He wasn't sure what to expect when he stepped off the plane, but there she was, Emma, standing in the crowd, tears streaming down her face. He dropped his duffel bag and ran to her, holding her as if the world would collapse if he let go. 2 weeks later, on a quiet evening by the cliffs where James had spent so many days dreaming, he pulled out a small box. "Emma, you've been my light in the darkest times. Will you marry me?" She didn't hesitate. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. The marriage. Their wedding was small but beautiful, held in a field of wildflowers with the ocean in the background. Emma wore a simple white dress, and James couldn't take his eyes off her. For a while, life was perfect. James was stationed stateside for a year, giving them time to build a life together. Emma opened her bakery, and James found joy in the little things, helping her test recipes, painting the nursery for the child they hoped to have, and falling asleep beside her every night. But peace is often fleeting. The storm. When James received orders for a new deployment, Emma tried to hide her fear. "I'll be fine," she said, forcing a smile. "Just promise me you'll come back." "I promise," James said, kissing her forehead. This deployment was harder. The missions were more dangerous, the losses heavier. James witnessed things that haunted his dreams. But he clung to the thought of Emma, of the life they were building, of the promise he made. Then, one day, a letter arrived that shattered him. "James, I didn't want to tell you this while you're away, but I've been sick. The doctors found something. Cancer. They're hopeful, but the treatments are hard, and I'm scared. I didn't want to burden you, but I can't keep it from you anymore. Just know I love you, and I'm fighting. Yours always, Emma." James was granted emergency leave and rushed home. Seeing Emma in the hospital broke something in him. She was thinner, her face pale, but her eyes still held that warmth he loved. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered, her voice weak. "There's nowhere else I'd be," James said, holding her hand. The fight. Emma's battle with cancer was brutal. James became her rock, attending every treatment, holding her hand through every wave of pain and exhaustion. Despite the toll it took, they found moments of joy, quiet mornings watching the sunrise, evenings filled with laughter as they reminisced about their first meeting, and tender whispers of love that carried them through the darkest nights. But the disease was relentless. One evening, as they sat by the cliffs where James had proposed, Emma looked at him with tears in her eyes. "James, I need you to promise me something," she said. "Anything," he replied, his voice cracking. "When I'm gone, promise me you'll keep living. Find happiness. I need to know you'll be okay." James broke down, his tears falling freely. "Don't talk like that. We're going to beat this." Emma smiled sadly. "I love you, James. That's what matters. Just promise me." Through his tears, he nodded. "I promise." The last goodbye. A month later, Emma passed away, surrounded by James and her family. Her last words to James were a soft whisper, "I'll always love you." James felt like his world had ended. For weeks, he couldn't bring himself to go to the bakery, the cliffs, or even their home. Everything reminded him of her. But one day, he found a letter Emma had left for him, hidden in her favorite book. "My dearest James, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer by your side. But I need you to know that I'll always be with you. In the waves of the ocean, in the wind that brushes your face, in the memories we shared. You gave me a love that some people only dream of. Thank you for that. Now, it's time for you to live. Keep your promise, my love. Be happy. Forever yours. Emma." A new chapter. James kept his promise. It wasn't easy, but he found a way to honor Emma's memory while moving forward. He volunteered at the VA, helping other veterans cope with loss. He took up photography, capturing the beauty of the world Emma had loved so much. And every year on their anniversary, he visited the cliffs, bringing a bouquet of wildflowers, and whispered into the wind, "Thank you, Emma, for everything." Her love had shaped him, her loss had changed him, and her memory gave him the strength to keep going.